Harley's freaking out, like, okay, I'm on the way home. Is Gannon okay? I said, and I wrote her back on the message, and I said, he has some burns from the fire, but everybody's okay. So Harley comes in, the house is like, smelling like smoke or whatever. We're opening windows or whatever. Harley basically took charge on that part. She started just opening windows. I'm like, Mom, it's okay, calm down. No, I was all hysterical all over the place. And they all wanted to, like, everybody just be together, because to me, all I could keep thinking about was if I couldn't have got to Gannon, he'd have, like, burned up on the fire, you know what I mean? So I was just all over the place. Well, we all decided to lay on the sofa together. That was on January 26th. So we're all just laying on the sofa together, just trying to, like, figure out the plan to make. I said, it's okay. I said, I'll have one of my friends. He goes by the name Guam. I'm not going to give his real name. I was like, I'll have one of my friends Guam get somebody to come over and fix it. Not going to be a big deal or whatever. And then that's where this whole, like, video goes on. And then about the fire, why did he set it, whatever. I remember I told you earlier, I record everything. I wanted to have that too, I didn't know how it started. I was upstairs when it started. And so he's telling me that he set the fire, but he didn't mean to set it. It was like all of that. We're just trying to come up with a plan to fix it. Now, you look at the video, people took it out of context. When I say we can sell the sofa, I don't mean you can look at our house. We have plenty of them. You gotta think of this country slang talk, meaning we can get a new sofa. So that got taken out of complete context of what we were saying. So I think my mental state, I was all hysterical. Well, we all were just on the sofa. I was like, God's gonna get someone to come fix it or whatever. I told you.
Notice Letecia never says how she knows Gannon has burns. Letecia does not express concern or sympathy. It's Harley who expresses concern for Gannon. It's because Harley expressed this concern, and it was via text, therefore provable, that Letecia has to admit to police and everyone else that Gannon had burns. Due to the state of his body, we will never know the extent of those burns. We'll never know what, if any, other injuries he suffered in addition to what they learned at autopsy. Harley took charge of opening windows and calming Letecia. Letecia wants to be perceived as smart and a good mother, yet instead of being the one to help the kids, she left it to Harley. There's previous mention of all of the kids doing things to help or take care of Letecia. It's the children who have to be the parents. This is not the first time she says, oh gee, if I didn't get to Gannon in time, he'd have burned up in the fire. She is making herself the hero at the same time she telegraphs her intent. This mention of the friend she supposedly called is new. He goes by the name of Guam, but she's not going to give his real name. Well, hold up a sec. He goes by Guam. What is that, a street name? And she's close enough to him to know his real name, but she's not going to disclose that. Oh, get out. If she called this dude, it's going to be on her phone. You know why she's not giving his real name? Because she's afraid somebody will check. He doesn't exist. When she says she wanted to have that video of Gannon because, well, look at her body language. She doesn't know what to tell them. That's a real I don't know gesture. And she pauses when she's trying to explain here. It's not that she doesn't know why she wanted it. It's that she doesn't know what to tell them. When she tries to justify the video, she uses the same tactic she used before, which is to rewrite and edit, and claims she meant something different. That she's explaining tells you she knows it's bad. There is no need to hide something if you didn't do it or if it wasn't bad. Yes, I'm making reference to more than just the video. Just as she claims that video was taken out of context, and I don't know what context she wants people to put it in. She now wants us all to view everything else she's done in a different context. Not the context of a suffering and murdered little human being, not the context of the horror, hell, grief, and loss suffered by Gannon's family, not the context of Letecia's pattern of abuse and crime, but the context of whatever is going to give her a pass.
There's the number to the garage. I said, hey, I'm going to go to work tomorrow, kids will be going to school. If you could get someone to fix it, just replace the carpet, whatever, I'll pay you whatever. So, like, I have memory, out and in up until then, right? But where the gaps came in was what happened during that time frame. So I hear the garage open at some point during the night. I don't know if I was having a nightmare, or I don't know if the garage was really opening. I don't really know because I was so heightened about this fire. So I kept going through the house thinking that there was someone in the house. And I kept running up down that the freaking garage kept coming open. I'd open the door to the garage, nothing. I didn't see the garage being moved or anything. Again, I don't know. I remember coming back in the house, and I was just like, I woke up again. I guess that's when I text my boss. I don't remember this part. The message went to my boss that said that my stepdad had died. I remember my stepdad died when I was 19. But I didn't snap back out of it until later on. That really wasn't the same day that my stepdad had died, right? But then I think I hear somebody in the garage again. Okay, well then I go out to the garage and I tell Harley, I said, Harley, I'm going to shut the door to the garage and lock it, because if you shut the door from the inside and you come in through the garage, like nobody could get to the inside. And I was like that paranoid, So I don't remember, but the doorbell cam, I'm like walking out, I guess looking in the yard, just trying to figure out what's going on. But then I remember being in the garage naked, and so I don't know who was in my garage. So when I talk to police, that's how all the stuff came about being raped and stuff, because I don't know if I was having a flashback of that. I don't know if someone was really in the garage. To me, someone was in the garage because I was naked. And when I say naked, like I was in like a bra, and I knew the door had been closed earlier, but why was the door open that I had locked earlier in the day, like early in the night? But when I get like that and I think somebody's around or whatever, I go into protective mode and I'll walk the whole time and I'll watch the yard and I'll be like on the zone of thinking someone's coming in the house, I don't know neighbors in Colorado. Like I knew in California where I could call a neighbor, And so the next thing I remember is Lena coming back in to brush her hair, which would have been at least 2 or 3 hours later, okay? I'm basing this on my cell phone records, you know what I mean? I snapped out of it when Lena asked me.
The gaps here in her memory are so convenient. And now we have a completely new story. And with her pretend mental illness, she has a built-in excuse to avoid giving important details. It means that challenging her or probing for details won't produce anything because she suddenly has major memory problems. Saying she went back in the house and she woke up again was an attempt to bolster her new story and new illness. Why have we not heard of any of this before? And as I understand it, people with DID don't have the feeling of waking up. They're just in a place and don't know how they got there. and she has woken up but doesn't remember texting her boss. And from her awake state, she snaps out of it. I hope there's a juror catching this. She's able to describe the process of hearing a noise, going to the garage, but then she says she finds herself in the garage naked. Impossible. She didn't find herself in the garage. She just described going there. As for walking around the yard, I don't know if she did that or not. It sounds like something she'd do. When she sees Lena, she again snaps out of her already snapped out state from her awake state. And the apparent loss of 3 hours here, she's trying to use that to prove her psychotic state around the time of the crime. But it's not a real loss of time. Have you ever lost track of time? Have you ever been so intensely focused on something that when you're interrupted, you're shocked at how many hours have gone by? That's not dissociation. If 3 hours goes by and you have no clue what you were doing for those hours, that's different. You know what I think happened there? I think she paced around all night planning. Her original plan failed and she had to fix it. So she texted her boss. Then she paced around, working out her new plan to kill Gannon and get away with it. She has said before that when she thinks, she paces around. When Lena got up, Letecia was surprised at how much time had passed. Letecia lost track of time planning Gannon's murder.
Now you got to remember, like when Maria comes, they're in that world, but like they're not. Like, it's protected. You know what I mean? I don't remember sending anything to the boss about my stepdad. You know what I mean? It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So Lena gets up, and I make her brushing her hair, and I come back, and I'm like looking around, and I was like, oh, there was a fire. Why was I in the garage? Why was I this? That's when it started being like, did I dream this? Did this really happen? You know what I mean? So I go out to the garage, you know what I mean? That's when I grabbed my head, and there was like matted blood on my hair. So I knew that I had really fell down the stairs. Like I had thought I fell down the stairs, you know what I mean? And so the matted blood was on my hair or whatever, so I just kept like messing with my hair, like trying to figure out what had went on. Well, I knew Gannon had burns on his arms. I evaluated him that next morning when I snapped back into it. I didn't think that it was enough to go to the hospital or whatever. Because I was leaving, I had an extra cell phone. It was the phone I put in the dog food when I got arrested. So on that phone, I called in. That's how the call came in that Gannon wasn't going to school that day. They couldn't figure out like where this call came from. That's because it came from the extra phone. Told him that Gannon told me he still was doing He's upset. He doesn't want to smell around the kids when he has this accident. So we stayed out for the day. I realized on my phone that I had sent that message to the boss, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, I didn't remember sending it, but I don't know why was I thinking about my stepdad, what's going on, and I kept having these, at this point now, became flashbacks from the garage, and I was like, who was in the garage with me, but...
While she's telling these two highly educated and experienced professionals what they gotta remember, she's got this look on her face. The picture quality is terrible, so I'm not sure. Is that a little smile? And there's blood in her hair from her head injury, the one she never mentioned before, the injury that miraculously healed before she could get checked at the hospital, the one she's now using to help her story of being out of touch with reality as she describes what happened while she was out of touch with reality. She wants us to be out of touch with reality. And she snapped back into it long enough to evaluate Gannon's burns. But considering she's now with it, she still doesn't give details. Did anyone see on her Google searches where she Googled evaluation and treatment of burns? She previously said she used Google for that. And she had a burner phone? Because she was leaving? If she was simply leaving for a job, or even leaving Al, why not simply take her own phone? Either way you slice this one, it looks bad. If it's true that she had a burner phone, it goes to premeditation. If she didn't have the extra phone, she's sitting here lying yet again. Okay, yeah, I know she's lying her face off about practically everything. She's had chance after chance, yet she lies to everyone. She wants what she wants, and that's to avoid all accountability and for people to see her as wonderful. I'm going to make a prediction here. If she is found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to the hospital, she will show remarkable progress and a miraculous recovery from this newly emerged mental illness. If she's found guilty, she will continue the charade indefinitely until some more useful tactic comes to her. When she explained she called Gannon in sick, she forgot to tie that in somehow with why she texted work at 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., she knew they were staying home. How does she know then that Gannon is going to be having stomach problems the following morning? In an earlier statement, she said the plan was for Gannon to stay home. She said it was to help her with the carpet. Hear that word. Plan. That's intent. That's a step further. It's premeditation. All along here, she repeatedly demonstrates she is capable of forming intent and that she did so. And all along, she has demonstrated she is capable of thinking through her plans, her actions, what people might think right and wrong here, and she did so. And having done so, she ended Gannon's life. And knowing the grief she is causing, she continues to lie and play games because it is all about what she wants. Sorry I ranted, but I'm leaving this in. Gannon is supposedly having stomach and bowel problems, and she keeps him out all day? But she's surprised to discover she sent a text to the boss saying she wouldn't be in. If she didn't know she sent the message, why is there not a second message from her saying she has to stay home with her sick son? Or why didn't she get a sitter and show up at work? She thinks she's supposed to be at work, right? So why aren't we hearing she made a second call in or that she showed up? And so she and a sick and injured Gannon are out and about all day, and now she's having flashbacks to the garage. Oh, really? Describe these flashbacks. What do you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel? Instead of a description, we get a question. Who was in the garage? That's not how it works. If you're having a flashback in your mind, you're back there. There is no question to be asked.
The whole time it was about Eduardo, which is the guy that Guam got to work to fix the carpet or whatever. That's who I kept having flashbacks with in the garage. So we go forward or whatever. I told Gannon, I said, he said he wanted to stay home. I said, no. You said my friends in the car came by. I don't want you here by yourself. You're going to go with me. I said, go grab your cover. You're going to go with me for today. I don't want you here by yourself. Now, typically, I let the kids stay home by themselves because I researched Colorado law and it said that it was up to the parents and their discretion of how had to leave and had to stay home. So I never had a problem with it. They would get off the bus before I get home. No issues. We had an alarm. They had cell phones, everything. But so my paranoia was so bad that I was like, no. You're going with me today. So he gets the cover. I moved the cars. And don't remember that part, but it's on the camera. Moving the cars. And I drive the truck for the day. I go get a bike.
The whole time she thought it was Eduardo? The whole time when? When she's having a flashback that shows her nothing? When she's thinking about it while dissociating, while carting an injured boy to buy dog outfits at Petco, while she's traumatized by the garage door opening? The whole time that something happened in the garage that she can't remember? What whole time? This matters because during a flashback, the person doesn't sit there contemplating. They are unable. And why would she come up with Eduardo, of all people, who is now a friend of a friend and not a guy she approached at a construction site like she said before? You know why? Because she'd previously made up a story and has to somehow incorporate that into her new story. And the new explanation of who Eduardo is doesn't make sense because 2 minutes ago she didn't know who Guam was sending, just that he was going to find someone for her. And notice her cadence when she explains she thought it was Eduardo and who Eduardo is. She speeds right up. She's lying and has to hurry up and get that out and speed by it so nobody has time to think about it. When she's telling that story, she's looking to the interviewer, giving that eyebrow raise, wanting him to believe her, then immediately looks away, pauses, and continues with, and so, a pause, getting the next chunk of her fabrication ready. Instead of merely saying, typically I'll leave Gannon home by himself, she has to explain it's okay for her to do that, and she uses the authority of Colorado law to support her decision. The tone she uses is, I'm right, you can't argue that. People who are not lying can do this too. What they're showing you is they're worried you're going to judge them. So they justify and explain to avoid that judgment. We know that how people view Letecia is very important to her. And she also has to explain why he has to go with her while he's in pain. And do you notice what's missing? In her previous story, she claims she put aloe on his arms. There's been no mention of that so far in this interview. She does include the detail of having Gannon bring his covers, but does not mention evaluating or re-evaluating his burns. No changing a dressing, no annoyance with him putting blood all over his wall overnight, no mention of bleeding or peeling burns, and she never did say that Gannon ended up alone in the cold, smoky basement after this traumatic fire in which he was injured, or how he got there. This poor little guy. Notice when she gets to the part where she says she moved the car and got the truck, she's rolling along in the story, and that comes out smoothly. After that bit comes out smoothly, she throws in she only knows that because it was on camera. Then she continues to roll along. If it was true that she didn't have independent recall of that, she would have had to pause, even just a little, to access a different part of her brain to be able to tell us that. But she does not pause. It just rolls along. And given that she feels it necessary to state that she doesn't remember that, she would have made that statement before describing the car, but she doesn't. When she says she doesn't remember that part, her cadence speeds up. She's lying about not remembering. She throws in an incomplete sentence about a bike. In one of her stories to Albert, she had a big story about a bike, so she has to throw that in here. But it doesn't fit, so she just throws out something about a bike. No explanation, nothing that would lead to anything about a bike. There's a long pause before and after the word bike. And going to get a bike is useful to explain why she needs to use the truck and not her car.
Part of the moving process will be boxes, like that type of stuff. I was glad that the truck was left for me to use. You know. So, made him get in the car. I think it says around no, before we get to 10 o'clock. Albert never writes the stats at all that night about anything. So the next morning. And he's like, oh my God, fired, right? And I looked at my phone and I didn't see anything. So that's why at first I thought, did the fire really happen? Because I never got a message back from Albert, you know. But then that morning, he messaged back, and I said, yes. I was like, he's okay. So that's when I sent a picture of Gannon in the bed that morning. Okay? So I was like, yes, he's fine. He's laying down. You know, he didn't go to school today. I called it in. I'm not going to work. I didn't go into explaining to Albert about me sending a message and losing my mind, don't know what's going on about. I don't want him to be like, you know, freaked out 1,000 miles away. So I told Gannon, so let's just go out shopping for the day. Remember, we go get coffee that morning. We go get like Dunkin' Donuts. I think they had me at Dunkin' Donuts. I don't remember going to the gas station, but they had me at the gas store. Just basically going about shopping for the day. However, when I get to the PetSmart, these black cars come by PetSmart. And you'll see cars on the freaking camera at PetSmart. Gannon's got his switch in the car laid out. Because remember, I told you, he had burns in his arms and a few right here. Now, and I say they were very small. We're talking like centimeters, okay? They were anything that you would think that they needed medical attention. The car comes by PetSmart. So you see me on the cameras at PetSmart running back to the door, like looking out. My first thought was I wanted to make sure G was okay in the car because he was playing in his switch. Well, the car came back by. I go back in the PetSmart, come back to the door, and like if you watch the camera footage of the PetSmart, you see me going back and forth to the door. Like, because how did they know where I was at this point? And that wasn't Edgar's car because Edgar has a Beamer, okay? And it was not a Beamer. So I leave the PetSmart. I think they said I bought something again. I don't remember. I leave the phone. Now, this is the only phone I had, which was Gannon's phone, because I was trying to hurry out to the car. And so I leave the phone at the PetSmart according to the GPS on the phone.
In the last clip, she gave us hint that her choice as to what vehicle she used was important. Here, she confirms it by explaining why it's okay for her to use the truck. She doesn't want anyone to judge this part. Now we're getting closer to the time of the homicide, and she's interrupting her story to play the same games she has played all along. Right after she says it was around 10 o'clock, she pauses and launches into this thing about Albert. She says, Albert asked me, then quickly changes that to Albert never writes us back at all that night about anything till the next morning. She's not saying it explicitly, but she's telling us she's not happy with Albert. He didn't respond when and how she wanted. And here, she blames Albert for why she's suddenly not sure whether or not there was actually a fire the previous night. I guess she's forgotten she's supposed to blame her new mental illness instead of Albert now. A couple of minutes ago, she was wondering if Eduardo, who Guam was sending to fix the burned carpet, had been in the garage. Well, there would be no Eduardo if there was no fire. Even according to her own story, there's no question in her mind there had been a fire. She has a burned little boy, a cold house that stinks like smoke, but she's doubting there was a fire? Notice she has jumped time frames again. We were getting closer to the time of the homicide, and now we're back to the morning when Gannon is still in bed and isolated from the rest of the family without any explanation from Letecia in this interview as to how he got there. It's when Albert calls to check on how they are and express concern for Gannon that Letecia takes the picture of Gannon in bed. I'm not going to show the picture here, but if you have seen it, you'll know there was no blood on the wall. Remember, Letecia previously claimed that in the night Gannon had put his blood on the wall? There's no blood. Of course, we all know she lied about that and why she lied. And here's the proof. She tells Gannon, let's just go shopping for the day. Earlier in this interview, she described a discussion with Gannon about not wanting to leave him alone and that her rationale was the people in the black car might show up. A moment ago, she said they were going to get a bike. Now it's a casual, let's go shopping for the day. At the pet store, she sees this black car she's afraid of. Video has her in the store alone, and she previously stated she left him in the truck. If you honestly think some nefarious character is stalking you, do you leave your child alone in a vehicle in the place where the bad guy is? She refers to the vehicle she and Gannon were in as the car. She forgets to bring her phone, and note, she blames Gannon for that because she was trying to hurry him up. She cannot take responsibility for anything. And why is she rushing him? Why is she in a hurry? They're home for the day, and she's decided, well, let's just go shopping. So what's the rush? Why do you forget your own phone, but remember to bring someone else's phone? And if it's Gannon's phone, why doesn't he have it while he's sitting alone in the vehicle with stalkers nearby? She knows there's GPS in the phone. In a previous interview, she said her phone tracks her movements. She purposely left that phone at home. I suspect she figured she could get rid of Gannon somewhere else, but found it wasn't going to work out. That's why the rush. She had to get it done with and needed time to cover her tracks. Maybe she thought she could make it look like Gannon disappeared from the pet store parking lot. She could leave Gannon's phone somewhere at or near there so GPS would show it there, then get rid of him and not be tracked herself. But when she got there, she realized that wasn't going to work out. There would be a big gap in time between her being seen shopping and her frantically looking for her missing stepson. You might recall her surprise in the FBI interview when she learned there was footage of the pet store parking lot. She wanted to view that footage.
So we go out and finish the day, we get Valentine's candy, and I'm like questioning again the whole time of like, what did they think else when they came to the house? What did they look like, like trying to get the best information I could get out of him because he was pretty good at like his age, like, okay, he's literally, if you say, was it a purple shirt? And no, it was not purple, it was blue, purple stripe. That's, so I knew I could get good information from him. So then we were driving on the back road, okay? The only reason we took a back road was because this road called 25 was backed up. And so we took a back road to go to Castle Rock. And this guy lived in Castle Rock. We go up on the site. And we're going to ride by this address that was on that police report. And I was going to ask him, please stop. Like, whatever he wanted. Did you want money? Like, I didn't do anything to your car. I wasn't involved in this accident. Like, you have all my information. Now, the insurance had already deemed I wasn't responsible for it and that I was on a plane. So I was going to think about, talking to this guy in California. I probably would have chickened out when I got there, but that was my mindset. So we go on this back road, which I think is called County Line Road. We go on County Line Road, and Gannon talk about, we're going to road with the castles. And so I'm, like, looking for the castles to try to, like, show them the castles, because there was, like, some castles that are, like, not really castles. Then I got mixed up, and I was like, oh, shoot, I don't have a cell phone to see how to get out of here, because remember, I need the cell phone. And so I couldn't figure out how to get out there. So I'm, like, doing U-turns, and then I freak out because I thought the guy walking was my stepdad. That's why I was telling the police and the people that I was trying to, like, back the car up and go back forward because he could be dead. And I don't know if it was just from that morning because I sent my boss that text message or what, but he was on that road. So I backed the car up, go back again, and I'm freaking out because he could be dead. This point is when I realized I'm not stable enough to be. It's like just going to talk to people or anything. So park the car for a minute, take a break or whatever. I don't know how long the break was. I remember taking the break. I remember them tapping me on the back of the shoulder, like, T, we gotta go, like, gotta get Lena from school. That's when I snapped back into it.
Again, the description of the day is interrupted by discussion of these scary stalker people. Note she skimmed over their day that she now says is finished. This is January 27th. This supposed event with the people in the black car who came to visit happened during Letecia and Al's cruise, allegedly. If she's so afraid about this, why is she only asking about it now? And they're home, having finished the day, and she's asking Gannon about these stalker people, and all of a sudden, the story jumps to a back road. So there we were, driving on a back road, okay? And explains why they had to take a back road. I don't know the roads in that area, so I can't speak to that. Perhaps people who do know those roads will have something to say about the geographical aspects. They're going to Castle Rock, or so she says. She doesn't say what time or at what point in the sequence of the day this is. They went shopping all day, remember? And came home and the day was finished. And now they're going to Castle Rock for some unknown reason. She injects this guy from the accident who she's previously said she doesn't know and that she even has people checking into him. But now she has described how she's seen his address and they just happen to be passing by where he lives. So with a child in tow, she's going to visit this scary stalker, possibly mafia guy who is after her? Listen to this business of insurance deemed I was not responsible and I was on a plane. She did a hit and run and is still worried about getting caught for that. And she doesn't have her cell phone because she doesn't want to be tracked. So she's out on this back road and suddenly there's a guy walking on that back road that she thought was her stepdad. Maybe she was somewhere and did see a guy walking and was worried she'd been seen and maybe even recognized. There's a reason why this is in the story, beyond its use to try and bolster her new mental health claims. She does say she was upset, so that's why she parked the car for a minute. Why was she on a back road if she was, and parking the car for a minute? Maybe looking for a dump site? She claims Gannon tapped her on the shoulder. No, he did not. She previously described Lena coming home from school on the bus, and there's footage of Lena playing outside. Letecia did not have to go get Lena from school. Letecia is showing her awareness that she has time frames she has to act within. She's showing her awareness of time and time and place. There's no dissociation at this point. Either she's describing looking for a body dump site, or she's completely making this up to throw investigators off. Even in her previous lies about that time frame of the homicide, she says her phone was alerting and she was worried that Harley was coming home. She thought she heard the Ring doorbell and was worried that somebody'd heard, was worried maybe Lena was home. She was aware of time. She wasn't dissociating. So when she's describing this, and clearly not in a dissociated state, she says, that's when I snapped back into it. There was no Gannon tapping on her shoulder, and there was no lack of awareness. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to tell us this story at all.
And I remember driving the car back out the highway, like out of the county line road to go back to the house. So remember I told you I was talking again throughout the day. You said something about these kids that were bullying. Not him, but Lena. And Albert wanted him to go do something to these boys. So, him told that Lena got hit with something. I was going to go talk to that kid. That kid's mom lived on Wando. So we come back into the neighborhood, into the part where Wando Drive was at. Now, rewind a few days prior to that, him and the kid had been called. They're like the Smartie candy and the like rolls. Well, they had been called a few days prior, like fashion the Smartie candies, and like they were doing drugs or whatever. My opinion was he should not have got this kid. I would make different. So I was going to go try to talk to this parent. But once I had this whole, like, my stepdad was on that road, I freaking stopped the car at Wando and said, Gannon, how about you do this? Because he wanted a video game. I said, why don't you go to the mailbox, get the mail, and do your lap, and I will buy you that $60 game you wanted. Because they know we have been shopping and I only bought him at $20. So I told you I'd do points. And I was like, give you points to give you the $60 game. So go to the mailbox and do your laps or whatever.
Again, she interrupts her story with another story about the neighborhood kid. I'm not going to delve so much into this story because that's not the important part. The important part is she's redirecting for the umpteenth time, trying to incorporate her previous lies into an ever-expanding story full of lies. This talk of drugs is just another misdirect and way to blame. She puts her hand to her chest a bit high up, almost at pearl-clutching level, when she's giving her opinion. And all of a sudden, that subject's over, in spite of being incomplete and not actually tied to anything. Have you ever been listening to someone talk and they use an incomplete sentence or an incorrect word, but you still know what they meant? It's because your brain fills in the blanks. Your brain looks for meaning and makes it make sense. Liars, whether they understand the mechanisms or not, depend on this. They depend on your brain to make it make sense. And they'll throw out key words and phrases even if they're not tied to anything. They know that later, when you're thinking about it, you'll say to yourself, oh, well, she did mention something about a bike, but I can't remember everything she said about it. Or, if you confront the liar, they can say, yeah, I told you about that. Don't you remember me telling you about the bike? And you do remember something about a bike and you doubt yourself. Then the liar can say, I told you, and insert things that they want you to believe right here. And because now you're doubting yourself and you do remember something about it, you feel you have to believe what they're saying. Telling Gannon to go to the mailbox is new and it's malarkey. Previously, she said she sent Lena for the mail. Nobody saw Gannon outside. And she wants you to believe she sent a sick and injured boy out on an errand by himself when she's scared of these stalker people in a black car. Note throughout the whole story of this day, not once does she mention Gannon not feeling well, or that his open wounds from the burns that he picked open to smear blood on the walls were bothering him, or that she checked. She only brings these things up when she remembers she needs to do so. The day was finished out, in her words. But then there was the back road drive, and they drive back to their own neighborhood, no mention of picking up Lena, and now he's off on an errand and she's planning to take him to buy a game? But they'd finished out their day already. And where's Lena? When Letecia said, we finished off our day, that was it. That was the end of Gannon's day. That was the end. All of this other stuff is misdirection, outright fabrication, blame, evasion, and game playing. All designed for two purposes. For Letecia to get away with murder and to punish Albert.
So, I don't know if Gannon got back in the car with me then, or Gannon walked back to the house then, but we ended up back at the house on January 27th. So, if you see the videos, you see me like pull in, drive back, do all this stuff. I don't remember all that. I don't know if I still thought that I was trying to like, what was said that. I just remember I went in the house and I just sit down and was like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? The alarm says I kept going to the back door and all over the house and like up, down, and around, whatever. Well, what threw me off was when I got back to the house, right? The alarm showed there was motion in the house, but there couldn't have been because I set the alarm before I left, but I put it on alarm stay. Because the dogs are in the house, people would say that could have been what triggered the alarm. No, our dogs are in crazy. That's not what triggered the alarm. Couldn't have been. And so I ran downstairs thinking, okay, well, maybe Guam had Eduardo come over here and fix this, carpet or whatever. So I ran downstairs, whatever. At some point in time, like I said, I don't remember getting walked back from the box and drove back with me. But he then comes back into the house. Said he's going to go play on the game. And I said, did you do your laps? And I remember us having that conversation. Then I go back upstairs to work out. What the police have about January 27th is absolutely not true because it's January 28th. Okay?
All this talk about the alarm is important because she wants to continue to dispute what the police did and did not find in respect to the alarm. In short, she's lying again. And her talk of not remembering things is merely to hide and distort time and hide intention and action. All these alleged problems with memory were not present when she spoke with investigators before. These claims of problems with memory have only arisen with the claim of insanity. Listen to her tone as she talks about the alarm. Sweet, innocent presentation. Oh no, I didn't eat the last cookie. I would never. Gosh golly, I don't know where it went. I don't know why my story doesn't match with the facts. Oh, please believe my story. Now she's thinking maybe Eduardo came to fix this carpet or whatever. Eduardo, who was Guam, not his real name, Guam's friend, who Guam never actually named. Eduardo, who was previously a guy she spoke with at a construction site, but now he's not because that story doesn't work for her. So I guess we're supposed to forget the parts she wants us to forget. Eduardo, who she was earlier wondering about. Wondering if he was in the garage the previous night when she clearly remembered walking into the garage, but was suddenly in the garage with no Eduardo in sight. Not that she'd have known what he looked like anyway. That Eduardo. Big cadence change when she says she runs downstairs or whatever, and there's a new story now. Gannon comes back into the house. From where? She said they went into the house together. And here we go. What the police have about January 27th is absolutely not true, according to her. Notice, she's not saying that what the police think is not true, but what they have is not true. The evidence is not true. How's that work in court? Oh, it doesn't? Alrighty then, guess I'll have to get me a diagnosis. And I'm still gonna say everyone is wrong and I'm right. And even though I'm claiming that my brain doesn't work right, that I'm snapped into and out of it, that I suddenly have memory gaps, and I myself am claiming my brain is unreliable, you should still ignore the evidence and listen to me. That's what she's telling us. And now she says it's not January 27th that it happened, it's the 28th. Oh, so we should expect to hear about how she found Gannon and called the police on the night of January 27th to let them know. We should hear about a joyful reunion when she finds him on January 27th after she thought he was missing. We should see records of phone calls or texts to Al and Landon and neighbors that Gannon is safe at home. And we should hear that Harley and Lena saw Gannon. Has anyone heard anything like that? Has that come up at trial? No, it's not true. If she changes the date, she can pretend that she dissociated. She can try and confuse everybody. She can misdirect. Maybe she can send investigators on a wild goose chase. Maybe she can claim that, well, it happened on the 28th, so everything you have from the 27th doesn't count. But it's a lie.
So the day goes on through that, right? Everything happens. I don't know where Gannon's at. Called the police. All that was going on. Everything that happened on that time was going on. They came in our house with, I think it was like 15, 20 body cams. You can clearly see, and I've watched these body cams until I've made myself sick, that you can see these body cams come in and nothing is out of order. Nothing has happened. Nothing is wrong at all. And I've watched them over and over and over until I've obsessed on them, you know. When Harley comes home, Lena come in that day, we were going to go eat sushi. Gannon is not a fan of sushi. So at this point in time, I'm like, we'll figure out something else again. Gannon usually is home by the time that if the sun's not down, it'd be 6 o'clock. But it was raining. So we get in the car, they have us on the car raining, like leaving in the rain. So right there across the street, ask this neighbor if we've seen him. No, you haven't seen him. So we pull back up. I start freaking out. I'm pacing the house, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Because I'm like, he's doing this flipping hiding challenge. Now, reverse back to this hiding challenge. They have a YouTube channel. YouTube channel, their mom stepdad made, and like if you find their YouTube videos, Cool Kids Tube is their YouTube channel. They would do these hiding challenges where like Elena would be in the box, and they would pretend like they were getting shipped all these places. We went over the rules with it, me and the mom. Nothing we thought was bad about the kids want to do YouTube videos. Flashback forward. So I said, he's doing this hiding challenge. So at first, police were talking to me. I'm just sitting there like, man, he said, do you want, and I know this is going to fall on the video, do you want me to check the house? And I said, yes. Because I knew the hiding challenge police had trained. You can't tell me this many police came in the house and didn't find him. You can't tell me that. That's because it was not true.
She's happy with how well she thought she cleaned up that crime scene. The body cam footage shows everything as in order. Remember in her interview with detectives how she said she put everything back in order? But things in that house should not have been in order. They should have been out of order. If she was frantically searching for a child who was hiding, and to the point where she's going to call the police, isn't she tearing apart closets and boxes looking for him? Shouldn't everything be out of order? Then she jumps time frames again. She's gone back to earlier in the evening before she called police. She explains the rule for when Gannon is supposed to come home. Then says, but it was raining. She totally skipped over the fact that Gannon was missing. And what does "it's raining" have anything to do with it? She skips over any search beyond asking one neighbor if they'd seen Gannon. She skips over deciding to call the police and actually calling the police. Remember from before that calling the police was her plan B if she couldn't explain Gannon's absence by 6. And she skipped over the homicide and the cleanup. We're hearing this big explanation of this hiding challenge, but no explanation of everywhere Letecia searched for Gannon. And it's the police officer who offers to look for Gannon in the house, not Letecia explaining to the officer all about this hiding challenge. And when she emphatically says, you can't tell me the police searched the house and didn't find him because it's not true, she's pretty animated here. The police did look through the house, and they did not find him. She knows that, and she knows everybody else knows that. So what is she saying, really? What is not true? She's talking about a body. They didn't find a dead body. That's what she's saying. She's failing to consider, maybe purposely, that the police were not looking for a concealed dead body. If that was the case, the search would have looked very different. They weren't looking for a concealed dead body because Letecia misdirected them from the very beginning.
So they did all this, whatever. The night goes on. Robert calls me back, and I'm a wreck at this point. I'm telling him about this craziness, and I'm telling him about the garage, just all over the place. All the stories, it kind of started, throughout the day, it was convoluted. Rain was all over the place, and I was going back and forth about this, and the fire. So he sends the officer back to check on me. According to the report, the officer comes back to check on me, and at this point is when I got scared. At this point, I know Gannon enough to know when his meds wears off, he's going to need everything. At this point in time, we haven't even eaten dinner. I haven't even fed the kids. We never even made it to our dinner trip. So that's when I became really, really, really worried. All of us are in the house. And they went on different searches, whatever. I stayed at the house to make sure of anything, if anyone called, if anyone done anything. That was the last thing on January 27th before it hits January 28th.
She references Gannon's meds wearing off. This is a good time to remind everybody that at autopsy, they found the absence of Gannon's medication in his system, but the presence of partially metabolized hydrocodone. When Al sends an officer to check on Letecia's well-being, instead of feeling grateful, she feels scared. Now, why's that? You know why. After she makes reference to the police checking on her and makes reference to not having eaten, that's when she says, "At this point, I became really, really worried." She's not referencing Gannon being missing. So we're at what? Close to midnight maybe on January 27th? We know Gannon is already dead, and Letecia has skipped over all of this. Note, with all the talk of the Archangel, Guam, God, Aguardo, and the dead stepfather, the scary guys in the black car, none of that has been tied to the murder. At no time does she claim any of them were actually in the house or did anything. Remember, no matter what she says, it's the evidence that speaks the truth, not her. Remember, whatever she says after this is a lie. She wants to punish Al and Landon. Gannon is already dead at this point in her story. Anything she describes as happening to an alive 11-year-old on the 28th is necessarily a lie. Go hug your kids or your pets, or go for a walk in nature and wash your brain out with whatever is good, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure or beautiful. I will work on part 3. Thank you for listening.